Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in the bag, episode number 56. We're here having a good time. Brad, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm pumped. The guys literally just walked back in the office after the 2-week tour. Good to see them. Good to catch up with them after the episode. But things are rolling here. We got a ton of stuff going on, and I'm excited because today's episode, I've actually met this gentleman as well. He did a trip with some of his buddies and met him here in the retail store. I think is he a Birdie fan member as well?
He is. He is one of my OG Birdie fan members, actually.
Nice. Yeah, so no, I'm really pumped about the episode today. I always love if I've had an opportunity to meet someone before the podcast, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, great guy. Super stoked to have him on and kind of talk through his bag. And I also I have some fun insider information from what I remember of talking to him over the years through the Birdie fam. So excited to see because his bag has actually evolved quite a bit. So I'll be curious if we've had any influence over it. And this is a slot that we're going back-to-back week of mid-ranges for those of you who are our regular listeners, but a slot that we talked about last week that is, I'm pretty confident we haven't talked about since the Silas episode.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it's funny because I've been talking about this slot a lot lately, in the store and just, with Jason and a few other people that I know. So glad to really kind of put that to the test today.
Absolutely. Well, we, as always, before we dive in, want to thank our presenting sponsor of In the Bag, makes all this possible, and that is Aaron from Flippy Disc Golf. So Flippy Disc Golf, fantastic gear. They have truly a variety of options at this point. You have your cotton performance apparel, you have their Soul Pro, and there is a huge amount of designs out there available. Obviously, Flippy made the entire West Coast tour possible, so thanks to them for presenting in that way. You got the foundation collection, including bear camo, California poppy, other great stuff, as well as they have in the bag gear. If you want to wrap our shirts and rep the podcast, super grateful for that. Those are performance shirts. And then, wow, we just got all choked up talking about it because so we got the Robbie C line as well that will be live soon. So definitely going to want to check it out for you visual watchers.
And you're wearing one of your new ones right now.
Yeah, this is the tabletop shirt. So for you gamers and disc golfers out there, this is in the Soul Pro material, so it's a lot more like a dry fit type vibe. So really, really great.
And I want to clarify to everybody before it gets commented, those are not gingerbread people on his shirt. Those are called meeples. If you're in the board game world, then you'll know what that means.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. If you're not in the board game world, you're very confused on the colorful gingerbread looking men, but super, super stoked for it. Meeples, board game pieces, coins, die, and baskets, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Robbie's collection is going to be up there. And if, Flippy has their own collection as well. So they have windbreakers. Again, there's foundation windbreakers, there's shorts, there's polos, there's normal t-shirts, there's hats. So make sure you check out Flippy. There's a discount code in the description for you all as well to save you a few dollars when you're trying to look good out there on the course. So thanks, Flippy, for being the presenting sponsor. And let's go ahead and bring Mr. Alex in if you're ready.
Ready for it. Let's do it. Welcome into the podcast. The In the Bag family says hello to Mr. Alex. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing so well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Honor to have you. Now, Alex, you're playing in one of our northern climates up in Michigan, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. So it's finally y'all are getting that warm weather, really getting to enjoy the outdoors again.
Definitely. It's fun coming out of the winter tundra with, I'm a little red from the reflection off the snow, but I'm feeling pretty excited to play some disc golf now.
Come on. Well, Alex, longtime Birdie fan member, and just a huge supporter in my life personally. So honored to have you here, man. This is a fun conversation because you share a connection with Brad, and that when you got into disc golf, Discraft only, but you have a little bit of a different reason. So why were you Discraft only when you started?
So when I first started, I tried to seek out lessons, and Reed Friscura was giving lessons, and he basically was like donating everything he had that he didn't use to me. So most of my remnants of discraft is either a Vanessa Van Dyken disc or a Reed Friscura disc. So that's a lot of
That's
the fun stuff that I've learned from him.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Very fun connection. A lot of people don't get the chance to learn from the top when they first get into it, especially to have stuff that, like, you know, people who throw really hard and really fast also kind of may or may not have broken in your disc for you. So super cool connection. Alex, how long have you been playing disc golf?
I'm a COVID disc golfer, like a lot of people. I actually looked back through the Instagram DMs between you and I, because I remember reaching out right when you started up your channel or right around that time. And it looks like September 20th is when I shot you my first DM about, hey, how do I do this and this? So I think it's somewhere around there.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Okay. So you're also coming up on a 3-year anniversary here in a couple months, which is just, once again, I'm going to say it every episode, guys. It's crazy to me that it's been 3 years for so many of you joining, and it's been 3 years since I've been making videos. So absolutely insane. Alex, we want to get them to know you for how you play. That way they can kind of connect and base this conversation as they listen. So if we were to put you in a field, wide open field, you are trying to look at the basket is X amount of distance away from me, but I can reach it consistently. It may not be my max distance, like I could throw if I just fully let loose. What's your controlled or golf distance on backhand and forehand?
So on my backhand, I would say probably around 300 to 315 is where I'd like to be. I'm predominantly forehand, so I would say 350 is probably where I'd feel comfortable with just ripping a forehand out there. That's probably what I feel comfortable with, actually being able to accurately put the disc. And then we start flipping over to the understable, and I don't know where it's going. So.
I love it. And Alex, you have a coaching background yourself, honestly similar to a vibe we had last week. What do you coach?
I coach tennis. I coached tennis for Albion College here in Michigan, and for the last 8 years, which is wild. So it's crazy to see how many people are in disc golf from tennis. Like, I think it was Danny last week from Iowa. It was just funny. It was fun to listen to that one, because it's like, man, what a connection, the forehand only and all that stuff. So not as high rated as he is, but I'll catch him eventually.
Yeah. Hey, it just takes time. So, I think similar question of, do you feel like the forehand dominance coming from just the years of tennis instruction and tennis play?
100%. I played tennis in college as well. And so I just think the snap, this, like you were saying, and I think it was a previous episode, there's so many connections with tennis to disc golf, just even with the names of the shots. So it's kind of fun to be able to translate that over to a new sport.
Awesome. Yeah, because I think Caroline Henderson talked about, I can't remember if it was volleyball or softball, but there was one of the two. Because I know she played softball, but she talked about, I think, volleyball. It was a similar vibe of, like, when you're like spiking the ball, was how she connected the forehand and got it going so fast. So it's all about, it's a crazy world that sports in general just kind of connect with one another, and gives you confirmation that what we're doing is actually a sport. So neither here nor there. Now that's distance, Alex. Let's put you on the putting green, my man. We line you up. We got 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 putts from 25, and 10 putts from 40 feet. How many putts are you making at each station?
So obviously there's internet putting right now. That's a new thing. I'm trying not to be that guy. I did this last night before in preparation, and I went 10 out of 10 3 times in a row from 15 feet. So I'm gonna take that. I went 6 out of 10 from 25, and then I went 4 out of 10 from 45. But that, I'm going to say that's probably a little skewed. I would say I'm confident maybe 2 out of 10 times.
Okay. 4 out of 10 though that's banging some putts. I also like that you're like, I did it, but it might have been. That's fair. That's You feel that sometimes when you're on the green, Brad, like those circle twos are just dropping that day.
Yeah, I feel that a lot lately, which is scaring me. So maybe I'm getting a little better, but I think I'm that way with like the 40 footers. Like one day I'll be hot on them. I can probably make 5, 6 out of 10, and the next day I'll make 1. So that's the one I feel like is very on and off for me. Is like right outside. Maybe let's get to 30 feet and back. It really starts to drop off there. 25 and in, I'm pretty confident in.
It's a question that I would really love to sit there with, like as a Pro Tour stop. Like, you know how the Pro Tour started doing those like interviews? You had the whole like Brody weighing his bag and like, how do you feel about name this tune or whatever? I think it'd be a very fun station of like, okay, let's just see how good the pros actually are at putting, and yeah, just be very curious if they are 5 out of 10 from 40 feet. Like,
yeah, that would definitely be interesting.
Who knows? Speaking of interesting, though, thanks for the segue. Well, thanks for tossing it up there, Brad. We are going to go ahead and dive into your bag, Alex. You've got a variety of molds, so once Discraft only. And some of you may were like, oh, we got another Discraft only guy on the channel. Nope, he has multiple molds in his bag and multiple manufacturers. Everyone should have multiple molds in their bag. That's
also true.
Yeah, you know, we're connecting all the dots. So multiple manufacturers. We're going to start at your distance drivers and work our way down towards the focus area, which is going to be mid ranges today. I want to start with 2 that get a lot of talk, and I think right out the gate, you may think they look really similar, but from what I know from them, they fly pretty different. And that is the DD3 versus the Pharaoh. So what do those do for you, Alex?
So the DD3, I've got 2 in my bag. One is been in my bag since I would say I started playing competitive, like in tournaments. My buddy he got a whole bunch of dad bod fishing stamped Innova made DD3s. So I was like, these are awesome. And that was when I was first, putting everything on Hyzer for my forehand just to throw it as far as it could humanly go. And now they're kind of beat in. And then I put a newer one in there that kind of can hold the Hyzer line just all the way through. And then the Pharaohs, I have the iBlend Pharaohs, which are like for my backhand distance shots that I try to Hyzer flip. It's crazy because like we're going to talk about flight numbers, obviously, but like the flight numbers on that's like 12, 13, 6, -1, 2 or something for the Pharaoh, but it is very understable in that plastic. Like I have a max weight Pharaoh and a 168 Pharaoh, and it's like even between those 2, it's like just a whole different world of what's going to happen with the disc.
Yeah, I've definitely seen. It's been a minute since I've thrown a Pharaoh. I have a friend who's a longtime Team Infinite member, and he was hyping up the Pharaoh. It's definitely a disc that I'm going to want to try out again soon, just because I've heard a lot of people say the same thing that you're saying, Alex, of like it looks destroyer-ish, like honestly boss-ish flight numbers, but people crush a Pharaoh, like easy distance. So very curious. Brad, have you gotten a chance to throw a Pharaoh yet?
No, that's what I was just thinking. I don't think I haven't thrown a lot of infinite molds. I've mainly only thrown maybe the Tomb. I think that's maybe the only infinite disc I've ever thrown, to be honest.
Yeah, we will definitely have to get you out trying some because the Exodus is insane. So okay. So Pharaoh, crushing it for you. So there is a difference. So one is backhand, one is forehand. Do you ever backhand the DD3s?
I would say in a headwind when I can't throw the Pharaoh, and I'm kind of like, oh man, this might turn it over a little too much. I'm just going to try to play it straight. But most of the time, it's strictly that seems to be the trend with my bag is I have forehand discs and backhand discs.
Okay,
makes sense.
That'll make it I'll be very interested as we dive through them because I want to I'm wondering if they just kind of run down the slides or the sides like facing each other, like, hey, you're on that side. Hey, I'm the forehand guy. Hey. But we will see. So jumping over then to, you got two Overstable boys in the bag. You got a Force, and then you have a Flick. So what do those do?
So the Force is for, I think I built my bag a lot around, because I only have 3 courses that are like around me. And I feel
Okay.
like I built my bag around those 3 courses mainly. So like the Force is kind of my very overstable, kind of off the tee shot. If there's something that goes way right, it's like a ridiculously overstable Force. It's the Z, really domey, and it just will refuse to go left on a forehand. I'm too scared to even disrespect it by throwing it on a backhand. So I just strictly forehand. And then the Flick is more of a, like, there's a couple of really wooded courses that require like a big forehand hyzer around me that actually, shout out Lower Peninsula Open, got an ace in the tournament there, got me some money. So that was the Flick.
Nice.
I just throw it up on a big hyzer and it just comes right back to Mother Earth. So
Okay. Do you throw? You said in the beginning it was like, I'm throwing these forehands on Anheuser to get the most flight out of them. Do you still end up like chucking some Anheuser forehands to get some flexes out of it at this point in your game, or like have you moved away from them? And if you do, which of the discs we just talked about is like your go-to for that?
So if there's something that's like crazy out there, I'm going to try to use my Understable DD3 and try to throw it flat, because it'll just flip over and have a really I trust it to always come back and I don't burn it over. Whereas the Force, if I throw it, I almost have to throw it on Anheuser to get distance. It's more of a disc that I try to have. If there's like a dog leg right, that's the thing I'm throwing off the tee, just because it'll usually flare skip, come back over. And then the Flick is, I would say, it's more of like the even more extreme version. Like, I feel like when some people are throwing zones on like a short island hole, I'm throwing like a big forehand hyzer with the Flick, just because I trust it to just crash into the ground. So I feel like that's kind of a state, like it's a utility disc that I lean on for short, big hyzers on the forehand side.
Fascinating. So do you find trying to come in on a approach-ish shot with a disc that's with that wide of a rim like the Flick has, do you find that like you just have to go so much higher just so it crashes versus like gets the flare skip? Like how do you kind of have to change your approach style by using that utility disc more often like that?
So we have a couple of like short island holes that are around me that are like surrounded by trees in the front, and I can throw like a big spike over to the left and have it crash between. There's like a opening where between the set of trees in front of the basket and then behind the basket. So if I just kind of come to the side of the trees, I'm just going to land right down into the island. Whereas if I've thrown zones and I've thrown stuff like that before that just kind of glide in, or I have to really put on a zone to get there, versus if I can just throw a Flick, to the heavens and just have it crash right down next to the basket.
I respect it. That is, I was having that exact moment this weekend while I was coaching someone. Is they were like, "Oh, I'm this close to the basket. I'm just going to throw like a little short zone approach," and I was like, "I would grab your Raptor. I think your Raptor is going to do a lot better here." And they were like, "What, bro? I can throw my zone that far?" And I was like, whoa. I'm not trying to offend you, sir. I agree you can throw your zone that far. It's just going to be easier for you. So I love to hear that. Okay, so we'll just go ahead. Brad, do you want to jump straight down to the birds, or do you want to jump over to the understables?
Let's jump to the understables because I'm curious about those.
Okay, lead the way there, boss.
No, so obviously I'm probably gonna guess that it's going to be forehand, backhand, right? Your Firebirds, you're forehanding your Firebirds 99% of the time. Is that a correct assumption? And then your Avenger SS, Sidewinder, Heat, those are your like, hey, I need to flip these up and try to get like the most distance I can on backhand.
Yep, and I would say the Heat as well is kind of like if I'm in trouble, it's like an Anheuser forehand to try to have it flip to glide. So that's kind of what that is for as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So You have the Sidewinder and the Heat, obviously very similar disc. Tell me the difference between both of those.
So the Sidewinder is a Halo Sidewinder, so it's like a fake Sidewinder. It's
that's the
pretty
truth.
stable.
Yeah.
So like that's like perfect for my arm speed for like if I just need to throw something straight, that seems to be the one that I go for because it doesn't turn over and it doesn't really hyzer hard. It just it doesn't finish like flat. Like that'd be ideal, but it's more just kind of comes to a slow finish on the backhand where the Heat I can hyzer flip to a tunnel, but that just is so flippy that it can go way right sometimes if I kind of miss my angle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I get a little risky.
So you're using your Sidewinder as more of like a control driver almost. You're like, hey, I need to make sure I hit this line. I trust it to go straight. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. So like if we're looking at the graph here, the Sidewinder is probably like directly in the middle between your Heat and your Firebird. If I'm looking at stability. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then when are you choosing your Avenger SS over your Heat? What makes you choose your Avenger SS?
Yeah, this is it's my attempt at a roller.
Okay.
I'm working on them because there's a couple of longer holes that are really low ceiling after about 100 feet. So around my area that I've been practicing throwing those. But that's probably the least used disc in my bag is that disc.
Okay. Have you tried any slower speed discs that are that flippy to maybe help you practice that roller a little easier?
Outside of the Heat, I haven't, no.
So I wonder, Robbie, I don't know if my thinking is correct, but I don't know, like an it or something, like a beat-in it might be a great alternative. Just a little slower speed, but maybe give you that like turnover a little easier for the roller.
Yeah, that's my question was going to be, have you tried and it sounds like you have what's the difference when you try to put a roller down between your Heat and your Avenger SS?
Like stability between there?
Like if have you tried putting your Heat down on rollers to just kind of utilize it for not only those turnover shots, the forehands, but also like if you're going to your Avenger SS just for rollers type of a vibe, I wonder if like there's room for the Avenger SS comes out and then it's just like I just use the Heat for all this, or if you put a second Heat in the bag that maybe has a touch more stability than, because I'm guessing, is this Heat an older Heat, like it's been around for a while for you?
It has, yep.
So I wonder if it's like a newer Heat gets in there, so that way you have multiple Heats that you feel confident with, and that'll start working it in so that in case one day happens, like you go to throw the forehand Heat savior shot out of nowhere, and then it's like, I'm going swimming. You've already got your other Heat that you've been working in preparation. So have you tried Heats on rollers?
I have. I feel like I don't have a good reason why I have not chosen that one. It's just kind of been like, roller, Avenger SS. It's not even, it's kind of, I like that idea because then that eliminates a mold that's basically used a handful of times. So I like that. I'm going to try that.
Okay. Awesome. When your Heat is in Z plastic, I'd recommend, like, especially if you're just going to add one, I'd recommend checking out like an ESP Heat or something like that. I know the 6 claw Heats were pretty flippy if I remember correctly, the 6 claw Heats, that run was pretty flippy.
Okay.
Just because, the Heat is an OG mold for them. So sometimes you're going to find some that are fly a little different. So Firebirds, is there anything special you want to share about the Firebirds, or you got a flat top and a star. Yep. So I'm guessing one of them is crazy beef. The other, just how about explain what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I would like to potentially leave a moment of silence for a disc that was lost in Lynchburg when we made our Virginia trip on Independence Lake Hole 1 from the logs, Mr. Understable Firebird. I don't know if you remember that bush that's right there, just straight clipped her, middle of the lake. I still have it in my bag for in the bag because there's hope. I'm hoping that one day it was this beautiful fireball dyed star Firebird, but rest in peace. But anyways, I replaced it with another star Firebird for now, until it comes back home. That was the precious child in the bag, if I were to say.
Yeah.
Why am I throwing it over water when my partner was there? Great question. But we don't need to worry about those details. We just
because if you get the ace, it makes your partner look like a fool. That's why you were going for it.
That's 100%. Take that, Isaac. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, you got it.
Yeah. So the Star Firebird I have a flat top Firebird, which is in champion plastic, which is like crazy overstable and flares like the wazoo. Absolutely fun to throw. It still goes pretty far compared to I've tried the Captain's Raptor, and that's just like way too overstable for a forehand. But the champion flat top just goes for a while really flat, and then it just flares right up to where I want it to. Where the Star one used to be one of my farthest flying discs on a forehand for a while, just because it was just good to me.
Yeah, the Star. I think for some reason they go Firebirds, champion Firebirds, flat top champion Firebirds. We have Halo Firebirds now, but this classic Star Firebird, people just avoid. I know I throw a Sexton in that slot, but before I had an ample amount of 21 Sextons, I was putting Star Firebirds in exactly the slot you're talking about, because it's A, they're super easy to find because everybody hates them for some reason. And then B, they fly really well. So if you've tried a Firebird, you like the feel in your hand, but you're experiencing what Alex is of, man, I keep trying these champion ones, and especially the flat tops that are just stupid beef. Give a Star one a chance. I can almost guarantee you, if your local store sells Firebirds, they've got Star Firebirds. You may have to wipe a little dust off the back of them, but they probably have them sitting on the shelves for you to look at. Now, we head down to the Athena and the FD, and based on the conversation you had about your Sidewinder, I'm going to be very curious. I'm going to go ahead and pull your Sidewinder into this conversation with the Athena and the FD. So what does this little trio do for you?
So the Athena is like my stock. If there's a short hole, backhand Hyzer hole or forehand Hyzer hole. And for some reason, the FD, I've got the Ella Hansen showstoppers that I actually got from the store.
Yep, I remember.
And those things it's like a cheat code. I don't know what's going on, but those things just go so far. I can throw those. Yesterday, I was practicing in a soccer field with a friend, and we were trying to go from the one goal line to the other by scoring in the net. And I went 2 out of 4 with the 4 of them that I have. And I was like, this isn't fair. Why don't I throw these more? So those just seem to be, I don't know what I was doing yesterday. Maybe I wasn't pointing the toe, but it was ideal for the FD. It just seems like it goes really far.
I would like to say, I told you so, Alex. So
definitely, you sold me on those, and I definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. For me too. I mean, I said all the time that my FD is my farthest flying disc. I don't know what it is. It just the flight of it, just the way it leaves my hand. It probably matches my arm pretty perfectly, and I can throw it very far. So that I'm glad to hear that held up, and I didn't give you a bad recommendation. So how, as far as the FD and the Sidewinder though, where do you see any overlap between those two discs? Is the FD a new love that maybe is going to bump the Sidewinder out, or how do you feel about those two together?
I think that's exactly what's going to happen, because I've only had them in the bag now for 2-3 weeks. So I am using the Sidewinder a lot less. I am going to the FD significantly more. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to keep. And that was kind of the thought process of when I'm looking at the Sidewinder, the FD, and the Athena. It seems like the Athena is the more overstable of those 3. And then even in a lighter weight, and then it seems like then it's the Sidewinder and then the FD are probably pretty similar.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, especially with it being a Halo Sidewinder, that makes a lot of sense. Distance wise, between the FD and the Sidewinder, which one are you seeing the most distance out of?
Distance wise, I would say the FD goes farther, but I for some reason the Sidewinder, I can just, maybe it's just with the amount of times I've thrown it, it's just I trust it to go through a gap. Because like that's probably the weakest part of my game is my trusting of a backhand through a gap, just because I rely so much on the forehand through a gap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of disc that it's like, oh man, there's a tunnel shot that goes X amount of feet and it has to finish left. I'm going to trust my Sidewinder here. So, and I really haven't given the FD probably enough chances yet.
Right. Yeah. And they'll get beat in a little bit. I think you'll start seeing some more overlap. I think you can probably relate to this, Alex. Where I'm at right now is, I guess, we are coming up on that 3-year anniversary of playing, and before where we needed like 3 discs, neutral, overstable, understable in like a fairway slot, right? Now we're needing like 5, where it's like very understable, neutral, slightly overstable, very overstable. And I think as we like test discs, I feel like I'm getting more discs fighting each other because they're like maybe covering similar spots, and I'm needing to find discs that are maybe like a little bit more different from one another because I can actually tell the difference between them now. So do you feel that pain right now, or are you still kind of like, I only need a handful of discs in that slot?
No, I agree. I think that's because I've tried the Explorer, I've tried the River, I've tried, like obviously I'm with the Athena now, and I've had the Sidewinder in there since, as soon as basically, I think from the beginning almost. So it's almost just out of habit that I haven't even considered the FD as a replacement, but I think you're probably right with when it comes to that is an overlap.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with some overlap, but I definitely wanted enough difference that I feel like I'm getting different shots out of them. It really bugs me when I'm like trying to like, okay, well, because right now my C-Line FD has beaten enough that I was throwing a thread kind of in that spot that like super straight. And now that I can like Hyzer flip up my FD and it goes very, very straight for a long time, like those two, I'm like, oh, there's no, I mean, I'm thinking about having to choose between the two versus like, hey, for these type of shots, I'm throwing this disc. So I don't know. I don't like the confusion in there. So that's definitely what I'm feeling for sure. And also you need a grackle, just throwing that out there.
A grackle. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
Grackle's going to compete with your Athena for sure.
Love that name.
The thing
I'm not arguing that it's competing. I'm just saying you need one. But continue.
Touche. Brad does love his grackles. And so the thing that I think is, especially on the Halo Sidewinder, like worth noting, and as someone who is going to start a petition here to weekly shout out Innova and be like, hey, it's week 1. Where's my Halo pick? It's week 2. Where's my Halo pick? And keep that vibe going. I think the beauty of like Innova making this like feeling of, oh, hey, look, we finally released this plastic in Halo, or this disc in Halo. We released this disc in Halo, this disc in Halo, is that it creates, that super limited run. And I know they've made Halo Sidewinders multiple times, but like even Juliana Korver just dropped her tour series this year, and it's Halo Roadrunners. So it's like, okay, well, that's a little different. And so I'm always hesitant to be the guy who like really wants to lean in and rely on like a one special run. And so just very, very curious on that, especially because if you're like a beautiful thing like a Halo Sidewinder, you're going to beat one in and it's going to fly beautifully for a little bit. I played with a guy this weekend who threw a Halo Mamba and he loved it, but he was like, I'm struggling to find more Halo Mambas. And I was like, that makes sense. So I can definitely see what Brad's talking about on that. So let's jump over. We're going to jump over mids and land on putters for a second. So talking about putters, you got a Polecat in the bag. We love to see that. And then you've got a Luna that you're putting with. And then your A1 and then a zone will be our like bridged gap. So the Polecat, what do you got to say about the Polecat? Because it's kind of living on its own over there.
Amen, man. The Polecat. I'm a Halo Polecat fan. I've got way too many of them, but the first time I actually have a Polecat back here that I have for exclusively drop-in putts. So it's got a 100% make rate that if I'm within, I can drop it in the basket. Never miss. Never miss with that. So that's a staple. And then the Halo Polecat is there for like, oh man, I hit first available off a tree on a wide open hole, but I need something to go straight and just die. And that's what I use for that. So it's kind of like my straight approach shot, because the Halo Polecats seem to just be like perfect for, they just don't turn unless I want them to, like I put them on a little anhyzer, but that's probably my go-to putter only round. If I do is just throw that a ton. And it's just fun to watch it just go forever. So, and it's a good warm up disc I use for before tournaments with friends. So I'm not a glitch guy yet. I'm still Halo Polecat guy. So,
Hey, you don't even have to throw the word "yet" in there, Alex. It's okay to just be part of the chosen nation and just be part of the Polecat gang. So, you'll see in a video coming out, same tournament I keep talking about this weekend. I taught a clinic and we were talking about how to throw these like soft up shots. And I said, well, some of you, have heard about a Polecat, but you never thrown one before. So I want you guys to experience that. So I walk over to my Atlas, fieldwork bag, and I just rip it open and I reach in and I pull out, because I counted the other day, I have 25 Polecats in my collection. And so I just toss this huge pile of Polecats out. And I was like, everybody grab a Polecat and let's go.
That's fun.
It was incredible.
Are you the only person in history to make it rain with Polecats?
I'm gonna say that if I'm in a small list, if not the only. So
top tier list of make it rain Polecat moments.
I love it. Okay, so Polecat, I completely agree for those straight shots. Brad, you're officially a glitch guy, right?
Not officially. I'm messing around with it.
Okay. We're testing.
I
we're
like
flirting.
it. I threw it again last night, just in the field at my house, and I like it. I'm getting it. I'm learning it. So we'll see. We'll see if it makes it in the bag. It is not yet. It hasn't earned its spot.
Yeah, and exactly the spots that Alex is talking about. Like as someone who loves overstable putt and approach discs, when you adding an overstable putt and approach disc for consistent approaches, huge. And then there's like this whole other world that opens. It's like when you go to an escape room and you're like, oh man, we solved everything in here. We're doing it. There's a whole other room. What? That's what I feel like when you add a Polecat, a glitch, a bird, or something like that to your approach game. Changes everything.
Well, you know what's fighting? I mean, you saw me throw that super beat in Envy. Like that's why.
That's fair.
That's the hard, because it does that for me right now, and it's. I love the Envy. So, but again, I get it. I realize it's not like once that Envy's gone, it's gone. So I'm already thinking of the backup.
I love it. So, Alex, you've got an A1 in the bag. And when I think of an A1, I think super overstable. But it's in 300 plastic. So how does it actually fly for you?
It still is very overstable. Like it's between my zone and like it's not as understable as my zone, but like it's like the Zone OS is I tried that to like swap it out, and the Zone OS is it's almost just a toy because it does not want to be in the air at all. Like I tried to throw it as hard as I can on Hyzer, and it's just like, stop throwing me. You're not going anywhere, Buckaroo. So
yeah,
that came out pretty quick. But the A1 seems to just like I can throw it on like a little bit. Like it's great for my approach shots that are like either I'm trapped a little bit too much where the zone wouldn't come back hard enough, or if there's like a lot of headwind in a field, I can trust it to just throw it and I know it's still going to die. Whereas I'd say like the weakest part of my game, or at least that I trust the least, are my up shots within like 180 in. Where it's like exactly what you were saying earlier. It's like everybody pulls out their approach disc here and it's like peer pressure and I'm pulling out a flick or a Firebird from 180. And instead, they pull out their zone or whatever and they're just putting it right under the basket. So it's kind of that's where I feel like insecure, I should say. It's not that that's not my biggest struggle, I'd say, but that's kind of where it's like the A1 gets me there without having to pull out a Firebird or a flick.
Okay.
Interesting.
I feel very good about what we threw today after that, those couple sentences.
Yeah. And so let's let the zone be sort of your transition then to discussing mid-ranges, because it sounds like you'd fit the zone not as a putter, but truly as that like bridge to your mids.
Yep, it is something that I can throw on Hyzer on a backhand that is going to go not crazy far, but far enough that I can throw it probably where I trust on a backhand 250, on a forehand 250 if I'm just slinging it as hard as I can. And that's kind of where if it's any farther than that, I go up. But it's kind of it's definitely my go-to approach disc if I'm in a wide open area and I just need to put something up there, or if I'm trying to not have it skip if there's a lot of OB and I'm in the fairway. My friend Caleb and I were talking about this, where it's weird how I'll throw a distance driver and I'll hit the first available, but then I'll go right to my zone, or he'll go right to his zone 100 feet, maybe 50 feet off the tee. It's like, why am I going such a big difference? And it's just a little bit of space. So it was weird to think about that. So I think it's more of when it comes to just trying to get up and down, I go to the zone as kind of like I trust this disc.
Fascinating. And that is a concept that I have not often thought about, but makes a ton of sense. Because it's almost like what you're saying is you hit that first available, and it's not like, oh, well, I'm just laying up from here. You're like, oh, I'm going to do the exact same shot. I'm just going to use my zone now.
Exactly.
I think it's comfort, right? You're like, whatever you throw off the tee, you're like, oh, I don't trust that, but I do trust this shot. It's controllable. Excuse me. Even if I don't make it as far, this is the shot I trust. I think it's trust.
Yeah. And there is something disheartening about smacking a disc first available and then walking over and picking up that exact same disc to do it again. You're like when I have to place a mini down to throw the same shot, and it's not like, oh, here's an 888 foot par 4. I'm going to throw my biggest distance shot, and then I'm going to pick that disc up, and then I'm going to do it again. Like, that's different than, oh, I went to hit this gap, and this hurts my soul. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So you're hitting me right in the feels, Alex. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for getting my morning rolling with
pain.
Yeah, depression and pain. So Here we go. Jumping over to mid ranges. You got 3 mids in the back. You've got a Meteor, a Buzz, and a Mustang. So walk us through the spread of those.
Yeah, so we have a couple of holes where it's like my Meteor is obviously my understable. It's the Vanessa Van Dyken Tour Series from a couple years ago that is really understable that I can Hyzer flip and it goes to the right. Or if I'm like a little in trouble and I need to throw like a flick forehand, that feels way better in my hand than a Buzz or a Mustang to just kind of like hold the glide all the way in to like a pin. So and then my Buzz is like the classic. Everybody says you have to have a Buzz in your bag, and I've tried tons of different Buzzes, and I found one that I really like because I feel like they're kind of touchy. Like everybody says, oh, it's the best mid in the game. Not trying to bash it, great mid, but it's kind of like it's almost my in between where I have to throw if it's going straight, I want that to be the disc that goes straight. But sometimes I just guess I get really strong and I turn it over a little bit, or I'm too weak and I just Hyzer it out early. So it's kind of a tweener spot right now where I'm trying out the Mustang almost more so for that because I can hit the Mustang as hard as I possibly can. It's going to hold the same line. And oh man, the Mustang Sally, whoo, my friend Andy got it for me to try. And oh my goodness, that is so fun to throw. And plus the horses on it, the stamp is cool, but I don't know. It seems like I'm losing trust in the Buzz. And the Mustang is just gaining XP, a whole bunch of ELO in the bag right now.
Yeah, I think I found that true, and I talk about it a lot with people in the store, but I really think the Mustang is what. Let me take a step back. I think some of the time, the Mustang is what people want the Buzz to be, just like off the shelf, right? I think there's a misconception. I know I had a misconception on what the Buzz is. When you see a bunch of people, they throw like very well seasoned Buzz or like a random variety of swirl Buzz or something like that. People get very confused on what a Buzz is actually supposed to be, at least from my experience. So I feel like the Mustang, again, depending on what plastic you throw it into, because we can talk about that, but I feel like people want to be able to hit a max distance mid-range shot, and the Mustang is what they think the Buzz should fly like. So that's my personal experience, personal opinion for the very little amount that's worth.
Yeah. I think to me, the disc that is surging in popularity that is the Buzz, what the Buzz actually is, shares actually the same flight numbers, and I think it's the Hex.
That's true.
Like,
yeah.
The Hex is very, and I don't say that to be like, haha, you fool. I think that there are multiple discs. I agree with Alex. The Buzz has been iconic for so long, and when people ask me to like, what's the most overrated disc in the game, I don't jump straight to the Buzz anymore. Another one has jumped in its place, but number 2 for me is the Buzz. So I like, just because what it flies like, I mean, that's why you have the foundation joke of the people's Buzz, right? Like, it is what people want their Buzz to do. That is not what the Buzz is, but it also comes in a billion plastics. It's been around so long. You can, if you love the feel of the Buzz in your hand, unlike the Hex, unlike the Mustang that are newer discs, you can find that Buzz. Like, your Buzz exists out there. Everyone can find the Buzz that works for them. It just depends on how much effort you want to put into finding it. So I think that, like a case you're at, Alex, of saying, I found my Buzz, is great. Like, I would say the hard part is finding more of that Buzz. And that's okay. Like, you've got time, because it sounds like you're not really throwing it a ton. So it's not like it's going to get super seasoned really fast or anything like that. So Brad, we had you try 2 discs today, and I'm excited because after hearing Alex describe what he was feeling, I think we both kind of started like,
yeah,
oh baby, I think we nailed it. So,
yeah,
Alex, we tried 2 discs, and they may or may not be like perfectly suited for your area of concern.
Yeah, I would argue that they would. First disc, we have Discmania Mutant here, and then we also have the MX1 from Prodigy.
Okay.
So have you thrown either of these discs before, Alex?
I have thrown the Mutant before. I have not thrown the other one. What did you say? It was MX1?
Mm-hmm. The MX1.
I have not.
Fairly new.
I have not thrown that one.
Okay.
Okay.
I like asking that question just because that way, once again, we don't want to go through the whole spiel and then all of a sudden, he's like, oh, by the way, I threw that and it's actually horrific. So, all right, great. Cool,
so you threw
cool.
the Mutant. What? How'd you feel about it when you threw it?
Yeah, it was a really overstable mid. My friend Andy's been begging me to throw a Mutant for a while, and I feel like maybe it's to spite him is why I haven't. But I feel like it's been. I think I definitely need to give it more of a shot. I got right when they came out. Was it the Eagle McMahon or what was it called? Whatever it was the first run I bought. I was on the craze of buying everything when it comes out during that time. So I got a couple of those, and those were really overstable. So I feel like I didn't really give it a fair enough shot. Because I used to bag a Buzz OS, and then it started turning into no longer a Buzz OS. It flipped over, so it wasn't really in the kind of as reliable anymore. So I kind of just almost went away from that and kind of went for the Zone or the Firebird as a kind of like the coping mechanism for that spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel, and I think we've talked about this on multiple episodes now, and again, I find myself talking a lot about this, but I think for players maybe in our like time frame or skill level, Alex, I think the super like overstable mid-range slot is a very overlooked spot because of the utility that it gives you. And I think when you're saying, hey, really all I have a choice between my zone or going to like a flick for that like super divey shot. I think that gives you that ability, number one, because again, it's a mid-range, you're going to be able to throw it far, like it's going to match your arm speed better. So you're probably going to be able to manipulate it even a little bit better and be more usable over stability. You can throw flex lines with it. You can throw forehands with it. You can throw some anti-forehands with it. I think it becomes that first pretty moldable disc that's overstable that like a semi beginner can throw. You have I think your form and your tennis background allows you some more flexibility than maybe I have with like a flick or even a Firebird, something like that overstable. But these discs, like the overstable mid ranges, I really feel like give me a lot of freedom and confidence in like that 250 to 300 foot range if I need something a little wild that I need to throw.
Yeah, I get that, and I'm with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Brad, how do they feel in the hand?
Okay, this is the big thing for me. The mutant doesn't feel great. It's like, I mean, I'm gonna show our visual folks here, but that little lip at the bottom is not super smooth. Like it's kind of rough. Like, hey, little ASMR. I don't know if you can hear the scratching. Like it's it's just like a little rough. I like the angle of it feels good. Like in my, like where it sits in my fingers, but that bottom just kind of bothers me a little bit. I look past it. Like it's not so annoying that I can't look past it, but I don't love it. Now the MX1 feels incredible. I like 400 plastic anyway. But it's like a little bit more of like almost a bead, if you can see for those visual folks. And it just fits really nice in that groove in my finger. It felt really good in the hand.
Okay. So they both have like, I would say neither of them are rounded like traditional mids. But how, like, so on a backhand, did that feel like, how do they feel when throwing on a backhand versus a forehand?
They didn't bother me. Again, I think the MX1 was way more comfortable on backhand just because of the shape of it. But yeah, they don't feel like your traditional, like rounded over, like sort of mid. But they felt fine. I mean, again, the mutant was like not the most comfortable thing in the world. But the MX1 felt great. Like I had no issues with it as far from a feel standpoint.
Yeah. Okay. So when we talked about this slot, I kind of, once again, I think we've kind of given like the peek behind the curtain multiple times with this with folks. When we're talking about a slot, traditionally what I'll do is I'll send Brad like 3 or 4 suggestions and be like, one of these 4 discs, whatever we have in stock, let's fire the way. And Brad found the mutant and then was like, how about this MX1? And I said, I don't know Prodigy, like in terms of flight numbers and all that. And I don't know what their version of this disc is. So I can't speak to it, but the flight numbers look like it could work. But
Yeah.
we've already talked about it on this episode as well. Do we ever really trust flight numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's directional. It's directional.
So I was very curious. So Brad, what kind of lines did you throw them on and how did they hold up?
Yeah, so I tried to really throw them on all the lines. So I really got to. I was just lucky we had nice weather, got it done ahead of time, so I had a lot of time to just kind of leisurely throw around. So I threw them on backhand Hyzer, backhand flat, backhand and Hyzer, backhand like extreme flex. Same thing with forehand, threw them on extreme and Hyzer, like flex shots, threw them flat, threw them on Hyzer. So I've got all the lines if you have questions, Robbie.
Yeah. So going to Alex's like area of, hey, this is where everyone's pulling out their 180-ish. They're throwing their zone. They're throwing their approach disc. He's pulling out a flick.
Yeah.
How does that shot work?
Yes, this is the disc for you. And I didn't know this, obviously, we just talked about it, but just for fun, I have like a course set up in my yard. There's several spots where I can kind of like go over behind a tree or try to throw up around stuff. But that's typically what I would go to for something like this. Do I need to flex this around high and it still fade back on backhand? And I did that several times. I mean, distance wise, if I just like chuck this as hard as I can right now with my shoulder, I was still getting like 250, 270. So that's fine. I probably could get it farther in 100% health, but still comfortable. I didn't have to like yeet it as hard as I could to get it to go like 250. If I like threw it way up high, obviously the overstability with the nose up is going to kick in, and probably got it around like 150, 180, 200 if I really threw that giant, just straight spike Hyzer line. If I gave it a little flex, obviously it would go a little farther depending on the angle I threw it on. But the difference between the two, the Mutant and the MX1, I will say the Mutant was like a tick more overstable than the MX1, just from a flight number perspective. I believe the Mutant's 5304, and then the MX1 is 5204. So very similar, and would lead you to believe that the MX1 doesn't glide as much, right? But I'd argue that it, like for me anyway, it like flew a little farther every time than the Mutant, and I think it's just because it was a one tick less overstable. It was still very overstable, but what I noticed about it is if I wanted to have an overstable line, so I threw it on Hyzer on backhand, or I really chucked it like on Hyzer on forehand, it was like as overstable as it comes. But what I liked about it was if I gave it an Hyzer, like it was like it gave me a little, it like obviously turned initially, it came back to straight, but it wasn't in like a hurry to get back and fade for an overstable disc. The Mutant, it was like, I'm pretty sure I could have threw the Mutant like this on backhand and it would have flipped over and faded out at the end. But the MX1 seemed like a little bit more variety in the flight, or a little bit more like variation, versus the Mutant was just like, hey, if I'm throwing on backhand, right hand, it is going left no matter what. It does not matter what I hit, what angle I throw, it's coming back. The MX1 was a little more shapeable, I think.
Yeah. And I'm thinking through like even knowing this was going to be about the result. That's why I asked when we were on the distance drivers, like, okay, so Alex, do you find yourself throwing those like extreme aggressive like Annies? And it sounds like that's a shot in your game that you're really not trying to pull out unless you absolutely have to, which could kind of help add influence to this decision, Brad. So between these two, which one are you leaning towards as like, I think this might be a winner for you?
Yeah, the whole time, especially after hearing your flick, your Firebird, like, and your discussion about, hey, I'm pulling out a distance driver, people are pulling out putters or approach discs. MX1's a winner for me. I just feel like for you and like that particular scenario, that seems like it's happening a lot. MX1's going to give you that freedom of like, you can just chuck this thing on Hyzer as hard as you can, and that's what's going to happen. It'll crash in. And I think it'll give you some other shots as well where you don't have to like, okay, I have to throw this on like extreme, like Chuck Annie to get it to do the flight that I want. You can actually probably throw this flat if you want and still get that very overstable flight. So it's going to give you some more like angle options, which I think is a good thing for you.
Cool.
Yeah. So how's that sound, Alex? Interested?
That sounds great. Yeah, definitely. Especially I love throwing stuff that I've never thrown before. So I would definitely be interested in chucking the MX1 around. So especially since because I agree with you when it comes to the Mutant, it's almost sharp to hold. Not like painful, but it's like it is a little interesting. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and this one's this is that new Prodigy 400. It's extremely, extremely comfortable. So I'll be excited to hear about this. I think it's going to be a nice compliment to your, it's not going to be a longer zone. We're not trying to find a longer zone here for you. We're trying to find a longer A1 almost for you. And like, I think this is going to fit that spot.
Yeah. I would say almost even trying to just come straight down from the flick and like,
give you a option there.
You got flick, Firebird, MX1, A1, like
right.
Depending on the distance, the speed, the ground action, all that. So Alex, would you be interested in coming back on and letting us know how the MX1 flies for you?
Absolutely. It'd be an honor. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Dude, well, the honor was all ours. Thank you again for coming on, man. And yeah, we look forward to having you on a future episode. Guys, I promise when we're talking through guests, we very much look at the receiving, all that. And then there just comes moments where we're like, hey, this person, really great opportunity. And we believe a good podcast is a great conversation. So the opportunity to bring on a friend, the opportunity to bring on someone who I've had a lot of chances to talk through their bag, talk about opportunities with. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. I hope that when there's guests like that, it doesn't feel like anyone's slighted for not being on the show, but it actually makes better content, which is what we're here for.
Yeah, and it's great. He came in, and to be fair, he's had an application for a very long time.
Absolutely,
and he came in and to the store. Him and his buddies did a trip down here and stopped in the store. I happened to be working that day, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a fan. I've had my application in for a long time, and can I take a picture with you and send it to Robbie and say that you said to let me on the podcast?" I'm like, "Sure," and here we are. So. Hey, I will almost guarantee you that if you make an out-of-state trip to the store and you have an application in for 6 months on the podcast, we'll probably slide you.
Well, yeah, bump you up the order real fast. Yeah. So, Alex, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. And truly, I think that the MX1 is that's multiple Prodigy discs that we have recommended in the last several weeks. So
take that, internet.
New leaf over here.
Yep.
New leaf over here. But part of the reason why we're able to, recommend Prodigy discs is because they're cranking out some bangers and we're getting to feel them in the warehouse. And so, Brad, that takes us to what's new in the warehouse.
All right. Well, this week is Innova week. So I know we talked a lot about it during the episode. So we have a complete Innova restock, including molds we have never had in the history of ever, or at least from what I can see. So we have a little bit of everything. What's cool is Innova's released a bunch of new stamps. They're looking pretty sick. I mean, the particular one that comes to mind is the Mako 3. The new Mako 3 stamp is just incredible. So like the star one. Yeah. So they have a bunch of their new stamps out. We're getting stuff in. Like I have Champion Darts, which is a random one that I was like, okay. But someone mentioned them the other day, and I was like, okay, well, we'll get a few and try it out. So literally everything you think of, from Champion Darts all the way to your classic, bottom stamp destroyers and wraiths and Mako 3s. If Innova makes it, we have it right now. So we're trying our best to get all that up by Friday. That may trickle into Monday, but you'll have a ton to choose from by Friday. Also, the new Tour Series stuff came out from Innova. We'll have that too, including Halo Sonics, the new Halo Thunderbirds, which are beautiful. There's all kinds of great Innova that's going to go up. So make sure you check that out. We do have a Mint restock as well. We've been out of Jackalopes and Bobcats and some of the favorites for a while. Those are up, including Nocturnal, so the Glow Longhorn. If you're into the Longhorn, we have the Glow version of that now. So, there's a lot of going up. Our certified used section on the website just got replenished, so make sure you check out those discs. A lot of good stuff in there, especially stuff you like, hey, maybe I want to try that. I think specifically there's several P2s in there that just had some blemishes on them. So if you're a P2 person, make sure you go grab those. They're cheap. There's a lot of them in there. So, if you're in the area, in the store, full restock in the store, including some custom dies by our dye guy here locally, Gordon. So make sure you check those out.
Yeah, I'm pulling up while Brad's walking through it. I'm pulling up the recently restocked section, the one you're always going to want to check out. And guys, there are some gems. You got Polecats, you got Pigs, you got Sonics, like not just Halo Sonics, like DX Sonics. Yeah. Like that is definitely going to want to check this out. There's some orcs, bangers.
There's apes, there's like Firestorm, like random stuff that we've not had in a minute. So
yeah. And a lot of the new stamps as well, because Innova redesigned their stock stamp, and it's looking real good. So you guys are definitely going to want to check it out, because you're going to get there. You're going to find an amazing disc. You're going to be like, wow, this is so good. And what do you do if it's good?
If it's good, you keep it in the bag.
Yes,
we'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.